Hey guys, it is April from Getting Hygge With It. Today I am here to do the garden book tag. I was kindly tagged by Kate Howe. I feel like this is the perfect time to do the garden book tag. It is feeling a little more summery around here, and I feel like after doing this tag I would be eager to get into the garden and start planting. So let's get into it. First question is Rambler Rose, a long read with multiple characters and plot lines. It twists, turns, and puts on a show with language. For this, I'm going to go with Wild Swans. Now, this follows 3 generations in Mao's China. I really loved this book. I hadn't known anything about Mao and his dictatorship before I read this, and it was very, very eye-opening for me. The way that he dictated was so perverse and so twisted that you may have felt perfectly safe for 10 years, and then he would flip things on its head and you would become endangered, essentially. It was a really wonderful read. Number 2, Hybrid Tea Rose. Modern and long-lasting, a collection of memorable 20th or 21st century poetry or short stories that stay with you for a long time. I don't really read a lot of poetry or short stories, but I do remember reading a short story collection by Catherine Mansfield, and I thought her writing was beautiful. This question actually made me want to go out and find that short story collection again, because I don't know where it is at all. I think I borrowed it from my sister, but seriously, she's a beautiful writer. Number 3, Lilacs, a seasonally inspired book that you look forward to revisiting every year. So the thing that I look forward to revisiting every year is actually not a book per se, it's an advent calendar. So my mom, when I think I was maybe 10 or 11, she created an advent calendar where every single day you open up a letter and it's from the elves, and it talks about what the elves are doing at the North Pole. So I think the first day is they're looking for the Christmas tree that will go up in Santa's house, and they put their ears to the ground and they're listening to the lifeblood, the roots of the trees, and they dig around the roots and bring it to Santa's house, and all sorts of creatures live in the house. She honestly is a really amazing writer. I've been kind of pushing to get her to get it published for the last few years, but I don't know if she wants to or not, but I look forward to reading that regularly. I actually haven't read it in a couple of years, so I think this next Christmas I'm going to pull it out and read it again. Number 4, Bleeding Heart, a beautiful dark work that broke your heart. For this I'm going to go with Night by Eli Wiesel. Oh god, I am butchering his name, aren't I? This is his personal experience living in a concentration camp during World War II. It's such an important work, and it completely broke my heart, but it's very, very short. I think it was less than 100 pages, but those 100 pages pack a punch, and it's straight to the heart. I thought it was one of the most important books I've ever read. It was really, really great. I think he also wrote some follow-ups to Night, and I'm really interested in reading those. I haven't read them yet, so I think I'm going to be on the lookout for those soon. Number 5, Queen Anne's Lace, a work that sometimes is seen as a weed, but that you see for what it is. Great literature. So for this I'm going with Girls by Emma Klein. A lot of people didn't like this. It's a very polarizing book. If you don't know about the Girls, this is about a girl who joins Charles Manson's little group. It doesn't outrightly say this is about Charles Manson, but you kind of know that it is. So it's about her meeting up with this group of young adults, and they live out kind of in the middle of nowhere. They're squatters and they don't bathe and they don't really clean up after themselves, so they're really messy. The physical descriptions that Emma Cline writes about in The Girls is so interesting. You really feel sweaty and sticky, and you feel like taking a shower after reading it, and I just thought it was beautiful and brilliant writing. Number 6, Forget Me Not, An Early Bloomer, a work you read early in life that you will never forget. And for this, I'm going with C.S. Lewis's The Magician's Nephew. I remember where I was when my sister read this aloud to me, and it just reminds me of her. It was such a fun and magical kind of read, as only C.S. Lewis can really do. My sister and I have very different reading tastes. She reads a lot more literary fiction. She reads classics a lot more than I do. And this was, I think, the first time that we read something together and both really enjoyed it. We were little kids. She's 5 years older than me. But I just loved that experience to share a joy for literature with my sister, and that she took the time to sit with me and read it. I really loved it. Number 7, Pansies, a classic that's losing popularity. Once upon a time, everyone had them in their garden and library, but now they're being replaced with begonias. For this, I'm going with Turn of the Screw by Henry James. I really don't hear anybody talking about The Turn of the Screw. I actually seek out people's favorite horror books on BookTube because I'm always eager to get more horror in my life. It's so rare that The Turn of the Screw is mentioned, and I just think that it should be more. This follows a governess who moves to a home with 2 children who live there, and she's going to be taking care of these 2 children, and there may be ghosts in the house and on the grounds. It is so scary. It's great literature. Number 8, Trillium, native to North America. In some provinces and states, it's illegal to pick these, a banned or challenged book. For this, I'm going to say Their Eyes Were Watching God. Apparently a Virginia high school objected to the language and sexual content. And I don't really remember a lot of foul language in Their Eyes Were Watching God. It's very strange what a lot of schools ban. I don't fully understand that. To each their own, I suppose, but I personally adore Their Eyes Are Watching God, and I would definitely push this into my children's hands and say, read this because it's amazing. It's really good. Number 9, Orchid, a work that was as challenging to read and maintain, an orchid. So for this, I'm going with The Canterbury Tales by Chaucer. I took a class where we only read the Canterbury Tales for the duration of the class at Queen's, and first of all, it's really hard to read. This is Old English. Is it Old English or Middle English? I think it's Middle English, actually, but it's very difficult to read. Our prof would have us like reading out loud as well, and when it would come to my turn, I would try to start reading, and he would always be like, I just don't fully understand why you sound Texan, April, and I just, for some reason, I sound like I'm from the South when I read Chaucer. So that's my answer. Number 10, Fern, a book that sparked your initial interest in a topic before sporing into a whole TBR of books on that topic. For this, I'm going to say Birth, The Surprising History of How We Are Born. I read this, two summers ago. Yeah, it was 2 summers ago. My husband and I were talking about trying to have kids at that point. I was trying to convince him to start trying then, and he wasn't quite ready. So I just threw myself into learning about pregnancy because I thought it would happen like that. Anyway, I read this book first, and it literally is about the history of birth from the caveman days to now, and how birth went from something that you would do at home to something you do now at a hospital. It was fascinating, and that got me totally onto the whole natural birth movement with Ina May is her name. Ina May. I'm trying to remember her name. But that natural birth movement, I started reading like so much about that because of this book. If you haven't read Birth, I highly recommend you do. It's absolutely fascinating. So those were the questions. I now have some people that I would like to tag. I would like to tag Jay Bookish. I want to tag Julie from A Girl and a Book, and I want to tag Bookerly. So I hope that you liked this, and I hope you're doing well, and I will see you next time. Bye!